The Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship moves on to Brands Hatch, our first of 2 visits to the Kent circuit. This time, though, we're on the Indy circuit, and it's a wet track as well. For qualifying that is coming up, the 2-part qualifying with that top 10 showdown to look forward to at the very end. This circuit just over 1.2 miles long. It's a real bullring of the circuit, and key to a good result tomorrow, of course, is a good qualifying result in this upcoming session. Dan Camish had a great day at Donington. He came away with those 2 race wins, and he arrives at Brands Hatch as the championship leader. 8 points to the good over Tom Ingram, the reigning champion. Local hero Jake Hill is 3rd. Tom Chilton, race winner at Donington, 4th, ahead of Adam Morgan. Then tied on points behind are Colin Turkington and Dan Rowbottom, and newcomer Andrew Watson it is who rounds out the top 8. Well, we've had 2 free practice sessions already today. One was damp, the other was properly wet. Jake Hill topped the times in the damp session. Tim Harvey, it was Rory Butcher's front-wheel drive Toyota that was quickest in the second session, which really, I suppose, is the track surface closest to what we've got now.
Yeah, and generally speaking, the BMWs, the only rear-wheel drive cars now in the championship, don't like the intermediate conditions. But now it's properly wet, they're back in with a chance, and you can't bet against local favourite Jake Hill. But I would prefer to be in a front-wheel drive car if it was me. But we've got to return to the top 10 qualifying, the 2-part qualifying that we had at Donington, and everybody will be on the wet tyres, I'm sure. But we've also got our new hybrid system. We'll talk about that in a little while as well.
We've also got a legacy of Donington, a 3-place grid drop for Dan Rowbottom, so wherever he ends up, add 3 places. Of course, inevitably on a short lap like this, traffic management is going to be absolutely key. Doesn't matter what your capability is, if you get stuck in traffic, you're going to be really in trouble. So the first part is just to make sure, really, that you get into, if you can, that top 10. It really is wide open, this qualifying session. It's going to be absolutely fascinating once more. And amongst the drivers that are well worth keeping an eye to, it's another local driver in a sense. He's from Essex, not too far away. Is Bobby Thompson, of course, driving for Team Hard with the Cupra. And a little while ago, Louise Goodman spoke to Bobby T.
You've got a brand new car this season, a new engineer in the hugely experienced Barry Plowman, and that smile on your face, I get the feeling you're quite happy with life at the moment.
Yes, very. Yeah, bringing Barry in, 30 years plus of experience, he seems to know what he's doing, which is fantastic. And yeah, we got to the first round. You know, he joined late because it was late process with the car, so we couldn't make any changes or do, you know, go down the route he wanted. We've had a 2-week break. We've come into this weekend. You know, the boys have worked well with him, and it all seems to be going well.
Well, just tell us how well, because you were, what, P6 in FP1, P3 and FP2. But it's the feeling you're getting from this car that you're really liking, isn't it? Just tell us what those changes have done for you.
The biggest thing to me is traction at the moment. The traction difference from what I knew before is night and day. I can somehow feel you know, when I spoke to other drivers, maybe in some manufacturer cars, that what they're feeling, and yeah, it's opened my eyes, and I'm really happy. Yet to been able to try the entry of the corner yet, just because of the weather we're having. But I'm sure when it dries out tomorrow, we'll be able to really get a good feel of how much we can attack the corner on the way in.
So what are your thoughts heading into qualifying? Because this is your home circuit, a circuit you know really well, a circuit that you got your first ever podium at this time last year. So it feels to me like the stars are lined up nicely without putting too much pressure on you.
Yeah, thank you. Let's get in that top 10 first, yeah? I know I'm pretty confident we can be well in the top 5. But let's get in that top 10 so we can get involved in the shootout. Hopefully we get in the top 10 quite healthily so we don't have to eat away at these sets of tyres we've got. So once we get in the top 10, we've got a couple of goes at it. That's the goal. If not, we're going to chuck all sets of tyres to get in that top 10.
What's this weather going to do, not just for you but for everybody? I mean, it's proper chucking it down out there right now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you only have a small window on this new tyre to get the most out of it. So I think it's going to be a 3-lap window, something like that. Some guys might be able to go 4 laps with it, but you're going to see a lot of people in and out of the pits just keep going and trucking new fronts at the car.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Cheers.
Green flag waved. Qualifying is underway. This our first qualifying session of the season where the hybrid will play a part. And remember that it is based on your position in the championship, so your speed that you can deploy the hybrid differs depending on how well you do in the championship, and the amount of hybrid per lap differs. So championship leader Dan Camish has 1 second a lap that he can use above 84 miles an hour. Tom Ingram has 3 seconds a lap above 84 mph, and Jake Hill 5 seconds a lap deployed at the same speed. Then you've got Tom Chilton, who's got 7 seconds a lap, but he can introduce that at a slightly lower speed, as can Adam Morgan, who has got 9 seconds per lap available. Dan Rowbottom and Colin Turkington tied on points, tied on the speed and the amount of time they can use the hybrid for per lap. So they've got 11 seconds a lap at 78 miles an hour, but everybody else outside that top 7 has got the full 15 seconds a lap, and they can introduce that from 71 miles an hour.
And that's a big difference, especially around a short circuit like this. It may be traction limited coming off the corners now, that they can't use it too early, but 15 seconds against 1 second that Dan Camish has is a big difference. Yeah. In the dry, the estimation from the engineers was that was as much as 2 to 3 tenths of a second, which, as we know from qualifying times in the past, could be 20 places.
Sure.
But in the wet, it's a whole different ball game. It may be that penalty is slightly negated by these conditions, and the driver and the car setup can make up more than that. So we'll have to see how it works out, but certainly it's our first chance to see how the new hybrid module works in qualifying. In a way, it's a bit of a shame it is wet, because we're not going to get the full effect, but it'll still be interesting to see how it works out. This man loves the conditions. Ronan Pearson and his teammate we just saw, Tom Chilton, who won that second race up at Donington.
And Ronan, of course, looked like he was on for a podium, and then the car failed the ride height, which is so often the case when it's a wet race. The tyres are changed, but teams, with the panic, forget to drop or adjust the ride height. So Ronan Pearson sadly lost that third place. He's done the target time already, which is a 56.870. Remember, this is about trying to get into the top 10. And if you can't do that, at least get as far up the second batch of the grid as you can. Now, this is on board Dan Camish's Napa Ford, heading up the hill. Sorry, Jake Hill's BMW, all the Camish graphic. It's Jake Hill's BM that goes to the inside line going into Druids and trying to pick his way through the traffic. Now, we have got 1 or 2 of the cars coming into the pits for a tyre cross, but the weather is only getting worse and worse, isn't it? The track's getting wetter and wetter all the time.
They won't cross tyres in this condition because they're coming in putting new fronts on. The tyres have a very small window where the edges on the blocks are very sharp. So obviously for a front-wheel drive car, it's all about traction and braking, so they'll be putting new fronts on. The amount of heat you get in a car, in the tyre in these conditions, it's not worth swapping it. So they're just staying out.
So the pit lane has got, what, 6 in it, 7 in it at the moment. Josh Cook has lost a lap already for track limits. Off the road has now got Aidan Moffat, so he will get himself back onto the circuit. Now Ricky Collard has gone to the top, so it's looking good for front-wheel drive as predicted. He has done a 55.7, a 53.9 was the top time in FP2, but it's much wetter now than it was a few hours ago. That was Aidan Moffat's big drama. Didn't hit anything, but has now got to scrabble his way back onto the circuit.
Yeah, a lot of cars going off there as you come down the hill from Graham Hill. The momentum and impetus and inertia of the car is obviously going downhill, so it's that much harder to stop the car, and there's also a lot of water that runs across the track there.
Right, Tom Chilton through. Josh Cook goes quickest then, so he lost 1 lap, but he's gained pole position on his next one, or provisional pole position. Now Ash Sutton goes fastest on a 55.471. Tom Chilton paddles his way around Druids, but you can see just how horrible the circuit is. So banker laps possibly to be set, because the danger is the road gets wetter and wetter, and therefore slower as the session goes through. Jake Hill you're on board with now, he's 9th quickest.
Yeah, the drivers actually, in terms of grip and the tyres, they work better when it's fully wet than when it's greasy and in between conditions. The tyres don't really like that. They're designed to be used in the wet. As long as you haven't got so much standing water, you've got aquaplaning. These are actually really good conditions for the Goodyear wet tyre.
So Jake Hill has worked his way through traffic. That's the man that's fastest thus far, and he's gone quicker again in the first sector. So Ash Sutton coming up towards the timing line. He stays out. Only 2 sectors on this short Brands Hatch Indy circuit lap. He's on the hybrid then now as he comes up towards the timing line to try to go yet faster. And he does. It's a 55.112, so he's now 4 tenths quicker than anybody else.
Yeah, interesting watching Ash Sutton around that final corner. He wasn't actually using the usual wide wet line. He was on the normal racing line. but obviously great traction in that fall to pull off the corner and get good momentum down the straight. As off goes Nick Halstead. I fancy that's paddock, so that will definitely be a stoppage to retrieve that, because that's in a dangerous place.
If he can get there, so can anybody. Red flag is called by Ian Watson, the clock of the course. Nick Halstead may have got involved with somebody else to fire off that. Whoops, Rory Butcher goes off as well, and he tries to get himself out of there, but the Toyota is off the road. And of course, if you are the cause of a red flag, you're not going to be allowed to rejoin, and Rory Butcher has gone off at paddock as well. Now, the red flag had already been called for, and he does get it back out of the gravel trap, so Rory Butcher should therefore be okay to get going again in the resumption of this session, but that was a bit heart in mouth for the team there.
Well, it was, and obviously the yellow flags were already out for the Nick Halstead car, so he shouldn't really have gone off. I fancy he probably had a bit of a tank slapper, because he's gone off quite late after the corner. It's not early in the corner, so he probably had a tank slapper and it threw him off, but fortunately he was only just in and he could roll the car or come back in reverse and get out of it. But that won't have gone down particularly well, I'm sure, with the marshals. But yes, we'll recover Nick Halstead's car. So I think we have a replay of what happened with Nick. Oh, it was with one of the Toyotas arguing over the apex of the corner, and off goes Nick. Now, whether one was on a warm-up lap, a slow lap, and there was a miscommunication, this is the Ricky Collar one. Look how wet it is. Sorry, Rory Butcher one. Look how wet it was. The car just went round on it.
Yeah. And the wet gravel compact, so he was very lucky that he was able to get himself out of there and get back on track and therefore head to the pit lane. This is the Nick Halstead incident again. So there is a tap from a Toyota, which is George Gamble's car.
It is. It's the slightest of touches, because that's all it takes in the wet. I think George probably thought that Nick was going to stay out wide, because he showed him the inside. Whether Nick was on a quick lap or not, I don't know, but a miscommunication led to Nick going off.
And number 22, Nick Halstead, has now lost his lap time, his best lap, because he's the cause of the red flag. So not only do you lose your best, you're not able to rejoin. It's this double whammy. So he's going to be a long, long way back. There are a few that have yet to do a time. Rory Butcher, Bobby Thompson, Dan Lloyd, Jack Butel, Dexter Patterson. But Nick Halstead isn't going to be able to get back out. The order at the pointy end: Ash Sutton ahead of Josh Cook, Colin Turkington third, Ricky Collard fourth, Ronan Pearson fifth ahead of Tom Chilton, Dan Camish, George Gamble, Dan Rowbottom, and 10th is Jake Hill. So as soon as the Hyundai is out of the gravel, then we can get things back underway. We'd only had about 5 minutes and change, so very, very early in the session to have that stoppage. Jake Hill gets set, ready to go back out again. Quick swig of liquid, and then you can concentrate on trying to improve from 10th. But as long at this stage as you're in the top 10, the heroics can come in Q2.
Yeah, I mean, the drivers, as we heard in that pre-qualifying interview from from Bobby Thompson, they want to save as many brand new tyres as they can. If they think they're going to be in the top 10, they want to save them to use 2 sets in that, at least 2 sets of fronts if you're a front-wheel drive car, to get the best traction. But so they'd like to try and get through on 1 set of tyres maybe for this session.
There's Nick Halstead's car. Then you can see how bad the weather is becoming, just with the rain bouncing off those puddles at the bottom of Paddock Hill. So the drivers have got a horrible surface on which to drive. The marshals doing great work in pretty horrible conditions. Tom Ingram, then the reigning champion, sits in the pit lane. He is 19th at the moment. His session really has yet to get going, but there is time on his side. However, the track surface is getting worse.
Yeah, the trouble is that the track, the conditions can change. There can be a slightly better moment in the track's evolution where it's quicker than at other times, either because lots of cars have dried out enough of a racing line to make it a bit quicker. So you sort of need to be out almost all the time. So although Sutton is currently first, and you can say, oh, well, he's clearly going to get through to Q2, he's actually only 1.1 seconds away from 10th. Now, if the track were to evolve and change by over a second, he could suddenly find himself out. So you've got to be ready to run all the time and probably out on the circuit.
Now, Dan Camish, who is, of course, the double Donington winner, 7th fastest at the moment. His car there just in front. And there, the drivers getting themselves ready for the resumption of the session. As I say, Nick Halstead, the cause of that red flag. The car has been put back onto the circuit with outside assistance rather than it being driven out of the gravel, and that therefore precludes him from being able to rejoin the session. So the car will be put on the old rallycross circuit at the bottom of Paddock Hill, or Tumbledown Hill as it was known in rallycross days, and with the road clear, it will not be long before we can get things back underway. Still a handful of drivers, as I say, that have yet to do a lap time, and the top 10 shootout, it's going to be a very entertaining one indeed on a greasy circuit like this. So the drivers set to go. There's
Not too many track limits infringements so far. In fact, Nick Halstead was one of them and Josh Cook the other, but that's all we've had so far. So Nick Halstead's best lap got taken away.
Yeah, but I thought that was because he was the cause of the red flag. It's not shown as being track limits, whereas Josh Cook's lap was. We've got 3 drivers, I think, possibly, one driver who is still yet to go out at all, which is Nicholas Hamilton. He didn't go out in that first part, so time's yet to be done by Butcher, Thompson, Lloyd, Butel and Patterson, who have been out, but Nick Hamilton yet to go. Right, we can't be too far away.
And that is on board with Nick, so he's ready to go.
Can't be too far away from getting things underway then now. Green flag is shown, so qualifying back in business. The mechanics pull the cars back, fire them down the pit lane. There's this mad scramble to get out there. Of course, at some longer circuits, lag back a little bit and try and buy yourself some clear track space. You do that here, you end up being caught by the wave of cars that was first out.
Yeah, the last ones out the pits anyway are virtually caught by the first one, so there's no advantage in that. And the problem is with everybody being on circuit, it's hard to find clear space and it's hard to find space out of the spray.
So out they go onto the track surface. They'll need a lap or so probably to just find out how wet it has become in that little break. Then they can start pushing, but as Tim rightly says, they have to keep pushing all the while now, because you've got the track evolving, you've got the need to get into Q2.
That Paddock Hill bend is obviously very slippery, isn't it? We've had, obviously there was contact involving Nick Halstead, but then we had Rory going off on his own, and I've just seen a couple of cars sliding a bit as they go around there. So it's obviously a problem area.
Adam Morgan has just left the pit lane. We've got Ash Sutton still in, but other than that, everybody is now on track, including, as we've seen, Nicholas Hamilton. So drivers come over the timing line, and now those that are struggling have got to press on, including Tom Ingram then, that we're watching as he goes up towards Druids. So the reigning champion, 19th fastest, and he's trying to get in a good lap time while the road is relatively calm. There aren't that many other people around him that are on a push lap.
Well, this part of the track was resurfaced, if you remember, before last year, and it was very grippy. The old-fashioned wet line was round the outside of Druids, round the outside of Graham Hill, round the middle here at Surtees. He's on the grass there, gets the car sideways, stops it. Now round the outside at Clearways to get a good launch to start the lap. They'll have to do it again. This won't be a particularly good lap, but he's got a good feel for the conditions.
It was a good save. It should move him up, but how much will it move him up as he comes across the line then? So Tom Ingram goes 5th fastest. Not a bad lap, 55.903, so 10 goes 5th. It's Sutton, Cook, Turkington, Collard, Ingram, Pearson now. Jake Hill's view, such as it is, comes up towards the line. Jake Hill 11th at the start of that lap, and he improves up to 6th.
Yeah, so Ash Sutton, the only person sitting in the pits at the moment. Obviously he's fastest, so he's just watching what lap times. That's Turkington off the road, but he's back on. That was on the exit of Graham Hill. He's got grass in the rad, he'll have to get that cleaned out.
And this is what he did wrong, just understeered off, didn't he, at the bottom of Graham Hill?
Well,
so
it's not the understeer, David, it's just being able to stop the car. As I said on the brakes, it's very hard to stop the car downhill. So he's just locked up and gone wide. This is, again, at Paddock Hill Bend. Toyota, everybody's having a problem. That's both Toyotas, actually, simultaneously half-spinning.
Bobby Thompson's up to 3rd for Team Hardy, the Cupra. So Sutton, Cook, Thompson, Turkington after his grassy moment. Collard, Ingram 6th now.
Back on board with Jake Hill. He's coming up to finish a lap. He's had a personal best in the first sector, so this could move Hill up a bit more. It doesn't. He stays 8th.
Right, the next improver was Aaron Taylor-Smith to go 12th. Bobby Thompson on the hybrid, the blue light flashes to show that he's using the extra power, coming up toward the line, personal best in sector 1, and stays third. Lost a little bit of time in the second sector, but third is a very, very good effort indeed in that car, and it's sideways at paddock like so many others, but it's third on merit at the moment. It's a very, very good effort indeed.
It's a very good effort. He's really enjoying life in that car this year, isn't he? And giving a lot of credit to Barry Plowman, the former director and 30 years of engineering cars at Dynamics. There's not much he doesn't know about how to set these cars up. As going off there is Dan Camish, I think. Oh, it's Pollard.
So Dan Camish, second fastest, as he has now done a 55.523. He's still 4/10 down on teammate Ash Sutton, who is the fastest. Nick Hamilton has been an improver, and he's 25th. Andrew Watson we've been riding with, and he is 18th fastest in the car store with Power Max Racing Vauxhall Astra. So at the moment he's outside that magic top 10, and we have got still 19 minutes and change on the clock, so there's plenty of time for the order to shuffle. Who is on the bubble? Well, Rory Butcher is 10th, so his first couple of proper laps have got him into the top 10. But can he stay there is the next question. Other improvements, giving you Dan Camish. Josh Cook third, Bobby Thompson fourth, but he was looking good in the second sector of the last lap. That's Camish heading up to the line. That's Nick Hamilton heading off the road. And he has got it wrong, I think, coming out of Paddock Hill Bend. He's going to try to rejoin. And now the clerk in the course has to try and gauge whether that car's going to be able to rejoin. It might get collected if it's not careful, because that's Adam Morgan spinning towards him, and bang! Finds a parked car, and that's going to be a red flag now. Nothing Nick Hamilton could do about that. He'd had his own moment, a second stoppage, and that was Adam Morgan getting it wrong, and bang, and those two cars effectively are now out of the session.
Yeah, that would have been, that's such a shame, isn't it? Because Hamilton hadn't damaged his car at all in his spin, but it's obviously a very tricky part of the corner of the course, that top of Paddock Hill Bend. We've seen countless cars having spins and going off. This was Hamilton. Again, the back end just lets go at that point, just after the crest of the corner. He manages to stop the car safely, and then identical problem for Adam Morgan, but his car starts spinning and it just won't stop. Look at that, it just won't stop. He'd have been much happier if it had gone into the gravel. It almost seems to speed up on the once it's he's got the tyres locked up.
Front to front damage, so this was on board with Nicholas Hamilton. Take every conceivable shot. So he comes out of Clark Code, can see the way he operates the pedals and the gear change.
Across the start-finish line, he's just changing down now, turning into paddock, off the brake, left foot braking, and it's just as he starts to pick up the rock. Now he's got, you see his hands oversteer, oversteer, oversteer. He's trying to catch the car, and he's got the car stopped all right.
And then wait for the bang.
It's stalled, and now he's going to look up and think, oh my God, here comes Adam Morgan. Oh no, no, he's seeing it coming, he can see it coming.
Here it comes.
Bang!
Oh. And a red flag comes as a result. So Adam Morgan climbs from a broken BMW, and Nicholas Hamilton attended to by the marshals. Adam Morgan has a look at the damage, and we'll make sure that Nick's okay as well. But
he's probably going over to apologise.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to take a little while to get this cleared up. 2 cars to remove, and you can see the debris in the gravel trap as well. It's one of those sessions.
It is one of those sessions, but I'm confused as to why paddock has become so slippery. The new tarmac, I was starting to talk about it, is generally acknowledged by drivers to be quite grippy. So whether there's a stream of water just at that particular point, because they're all losing it at exactly the same point in the corner, whether they're front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. So it obviously just reaches a point where it starts to aquaplane. Oh.
Nick Hamilton trying to clamber out of the car, which then just rolls away slightly as he takes his foot off the brake, so the marshals help him out, and he will then make his way clear of the incident zone. Adam Morgan makes sure that he's okay and apologises, but yeah, you've got a feel for Nick. That wasn't, okay, it was his fault in as much as he'd had the spin, but the actual contact wasn't his fault. Adam Morgan having his own moment, and the two just meeting.
Hopefully the damage not too bad. 18 minutes left still on the clock, so actually plenty of time once they resume. But no one beat Sutton's time in that little melee of laps. Teammate Camish jumped up to second, which he'll be pleased about. Remember, he hasn't got he's got the least amount of hybrid use, so he'll be pleased with that lap, albeit it's 4/10 slower than Sutton's.
Right, so let's just remind you why we've got this red flag. This was part one, which was Nick Hamilton having a spin, no damage done, kept it out of the gravel as well, and then he waits for a gap in the traffic to try and rotate the car and accelerate away. And while he waits and waits and waits, here comes Adam Morgan. The back just breaks away. Morgan goes around like a top, and boom.
And once the car started spinning, it's almost like its spinning inertia speeded it up. But yeah, very unfortunate for both of them.
Adam Morgan loses his best lap time for effectively causing this red flag because it was his contact. So while we have the red flag, let's catch up with other incidents and other drivers. 9th currently in the times, Rory Butcher. He's with Louise.
Rory, currently sitting 9th in the standings, but as we've seen numerous incidents at Paddock Hill Bend, you had a bit of a moment there. What's the track like there? It's obviously really slippy.
Yeah, the track is really, really bad. Just standing water or streams of water running across, and it kind of just catches you off guard. So I've had a couple of moments at Paddock. We're going to bolt on a better set of rear tyres, hoping to cut through that standing water, because at the moment we're just aquaplaning everywhere.
Is there anything as a driver you can do at that point? I mean, or is it kind of purely in the lap of the gods as to how much water happens to be coming across the track when you're going through it?
Yeah, of course you can rein it in with your entry speed. So that's the lap that I did there. I had to kind of really bring it back. It's just yeah, we're pushing, but we're going to try and find, like I say, a bit more grip from some better tyres. So let's see. Here we go.
Okay, I'll let you get back to your engineers.
So Rich Benton, who is Rory Butcher's engineer, will be talking to him, getting ready for the resumption of this session. It's a very bitty session, as we've been saying, with these 2 red flags, and it could well be that there are more stoppages between now and the end of Q1. We'll wait and see, but if people are having moments and the gravel ensnares them, then there is no option but to stop the session. So that the Speedworks team at Toyota Gazoo Racing UK go to work. 3-car team this year, new engines in the cars, and Ricky Collard is the fastest of the Toyota trio. He is 6th fastest.
Yeah, one thing the driver can do is he can try and get behind a group of cars who will just cut a little path through the standing water, and he can go through almost on those tram rails, if you like, a bit like when you go on the motorway and you can, in deep water, if a car or a lorry goes past, you can see the slightly drier part to drive on. So if a canny driver maybe can get behind a few cars and use them to clear a bit of water so that he has less to go through at those crucial points. But it's a little bit of pot luck, but it's certainly something a driver could be thinking about to help find a slightly drier path through the running water.
Improvers just before that red flag were Rory Butcher and also Dan Rowbottom, who is 13th plus 3 because of his grid drop, and Aidan Moffat, who we saw on the grass right at the very start of the session.
Nice to see Josh Cook up there. We've been waiting for something from him and that team. They didn't really deliver. They had all the potential, didn't really deliver so much up at Donington, but he's at the sharp end of the grid now, albeit a bit like Dan Camish, 4 to 5 tenths away from that time that Sutton did. I don't think Sutton is going to need to go out again, that's for sure.
But plenty others will, and the man on the bubble is this man, Ronan Pearson. He is 10th fastest, and the margin between him and his teammate Tom Chilton is 59 thousandths of a second. So that is effectively it's 60 thousandths that Chilton needs to find to go ahead rather than to tie with him. But that's how fine the margins are right now between being in the top 10 and out of it. And Ronan Pearson himself is only 2 thousandths slower than Rory Butcher. So you've got your 4 tenths, as Tim says, between Sutton and anybody else, Dan Camish. So that's a big margin, but it's much, much tighter further down the order.
Yeah, what they were saying about putting better tyres, Rory was saying about putting better tyres on the back of the car. Normally on a front-wheel drive car, you don't worry too much about the rear tyres in the wet. But obviously, because it's all about getting traction, rotation and braking from the front tyres on a front-wheel drive car. But clearly we've reached a stage where the track is so wet, they need really good tyres, front and rear. just to cut through those swathes of standing water.
Right, so Nick Hamilton's car has been retrieved. The other one is Adam Morgan's, which is there on the flatbed, but yet to leave Paddock Hill Bend. So the recovery crew attend to that, and the marshals sweep water and gravel away from the road.
Maybe not for the last time in this session.
Indeed, I was about to say that. Yeah, it might be a fool's errand, that. But you have to make the track as safe as possible, so any standing water that can be swept away, and the gravel as well, which might cause a car to slide unnecessarily, does have to be attended to. Nick Halstead's car's on its way back to the pit lane as well. There's a general clean-up operation going on here.
Well, they might need the truck again, so...
That's true, yes. Yes. Practical thinking.
Empty them all off and get the trucks ready.
Oh, yeah,
Not seen so many track limits infringements. Obviously, in the wet, the painted curbs are very slippery on the exits of corners, so drivers tend to try and stay off them a little bit more than they do in the dry. So less track limit infringements at the moment. I think Lou has Nick Hamilton in the pits for a reaction to that incident.
I have indeed, Tim. And Nick, I've just been speaking to Rory Butcher about those streams of water coming across the track at Paddock Hill Bend, which I'm guessing is what caught you up. But you were fine. You were on your way out of there until Adam Morgan came along, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I always blame myself. I shouldn't have been there in the first place, but it was just a mistake. You can see it's treacherous out there, quite slippery conditions. So yeah, unfortunate that Adam lost it as well, and the impact it's had on my car is a shame, but it is what it is.
Could you? I presume you could see him coming. Could you? You could be thinking, no. Oh my goodness, yes.
I could see him coming, but I didn't know whether he was going to miss me or not. Yeah, it looked like he was coming more towards me. I was trying to move, but I didn't know what to do because he was spinning, and then yeah, he ended up hitting my front, which is a shame. So it is what it is.
How much of a bang was it? How much damage is there? I mean, obviously you can't do anything else in this session, but how much work for the boys to fix it?
I haven't looked at it, but I think it's quite minimal. I mean, there's a little bit of an impact, but the boys will be able to fix it. It should be fine for tomorrow.
Cheers, Nick. See you out there tomorrow.
Cheers.
So he will have to start 25th, Nicholas Hamilton, Adam Morgan 23rd on the grid. So certainly Adam is a man that's going to be on a charge in that opening race. So it's going to be a really jumbled grid. We were predicting that, given that we have this two-part qualifying. But what we hadn't necessarily factored in was that you have people having these incidents, losing lap times for causing red flags, not being able to go back out, and therefore starting further back than would normally be the case.
But you've got to expect it in conditions like this. You know, as Nick said, everybody is pushing to the limit. It's qualifying at the end of the day. This is when you have to try your absolute hardest. There's no holding back like you might do waiting for an opportunity in a race situation. You've got to be pushing. The only man who hasn't got to do anything is actually Ash Sutton, who can sit in the pits and do nothing. There's his teammate Dan Camish, probably thinking long and hard whether he needs to go out, but with that gap, so many cars so close to him, a big gap to first 4/10, but behind him, as you said, David, another 4/10 puts you down to 10th.
So the road is clear, green flag is imminent, and the teams are getting set to bring the cars back. Now, of course, if the road is getting more and more treacherous, the rain is getting heavier, then improvements might be harder to come by. So the teams are all on their toes, all ready to go out. Even if you don't get into that top 10, you still need to be as far up the remainder of the grid as you possibly can. So there's still everything to play for with 18.5 minutes on the clock. Let's go again then. So the cars push backwards, then one by one, they will get themselves into line out of the pits, headed by the Toms, Ingram and Chilton, then the Dans, Camish and Rowbottom. And then Sam Osborne is going to be next as the field makes its way out of the pit lane. But again, Ash Sutton not looking overly concerned about joining in.
No, he's not going anywhere. Ronan Pearson also sitting in the pits, but he may be waiting for a bit of a gap, or he may have heard what I said and thought, let's let the others clear a bit of a path and I'll go out at the back.
Well, he's only 59 thousandths clear of the opposition, so they're pulling the car back now. They're going to send him out.
That's good thinking. That is good thinking, because the other cars will clear that path. He will be, although by the time he gets out, the first few cars will be coming round anyway, but he's effectively got a clear track for a little while.
Now, the first of the drivers outside the Magic 10, Tom Chilton, then Dan Lloyd, then Dan Rowbottom, then Aaron Taylor-Smith, then George Gamble. So there are 5 drivers at least that you can expect to be pushing very, very hard indeed. Sam Osborne here is 22nd. I'm off you, it's a lot less than it was at the very start of the session. There's more spray. It looks almost like the championship finals condition, this. We normally have in October rather than May.
Well, I talked about how the wet tyres like the track to be wet, but they don't like it to have standing water. And we've now got a lot of standing water, so I'd be amazed if the times could, unless we could clear a bit of a racing line, could actually be any quicker. But we'll start getting some lap times fairly quickly.
And then we'll get an idea. So on this next lap, we'll start to see what people can do in sectors. And also see if there's any further drama in this session that might have yet another interruption. So here comes Tom Ingram, who is 7th fastest, and he heads for the pit lane. So scrub that lap, as it were. Dan Camish has gone quicker in sector 1, so also has Jake Hill, so also has Dan Rowbottom and Stephen Jelly. So we're not totally done yet. Camo goes across the line, and although that was a slower lap, it did start with an improvement in sector 1. As I say, you're riding with him as he goes through paddock. Dan Rowbottom has improved to go up to 11th on a 55.993. Stephen Jelly to 14th on a 56.084. And Jake Hill goes second, 55.508. So you can improve.
Wow, that's good. That's good performance. The BMW is probably liking these very wet conditions. It's the intermediate conditions they don't like, but yes, that will tell everybody that improvements can be made.
And there are more to come, potentially, therefore. Right, so Jake Hill gets to within 4/10. 0.396 of a second is the margin. Sutton to Hill. Camish third, Cook fourth, Thompson, Turkington, Collard, Ingram, Butcher, Pearson is the top 10. And Jake Hill, let's see, is he done yet? Yes, he's, in terms of a sector 1 time, slightly slower this lap around, whereas Camish has done another improvement in the first sector. So here that's Dan Rowbottom up towards the line. Rowbottom did improve last time. He improves this time to go 7th, 55.767. So he's into the top 10, and another red flag is being shown. The session is being stopped again.
But it was done just after Dan Camish jumped Jake Hill to go second.
There's your answer. It's Will Powell now, who is in the gravel up at Druids. So yet another stoppage. Third red flag. Will Powell will lose his best lap time. He was 26th of the 27 anyway, so he will be towards the back of the grid. And this is what happened. Up to Druids, locks up, on he goes.
Way too late. And once you lock up, the car just doesn't slow down. It shows you how much you rely on those wheels still being able to turn. But Camish had literally just crossed the line to go second. I don't know whether he got that time in time, but it's still shown as second on the screen in front of Hill. Just a couple of tenths behind Sutton.
So Will Powell walks away. Rowbottom's lap had put him up to 7th.
And Pearson is now out of the top 10. Yeah. He's now 11th.
So he's missed out by 2 thousandths, effectively, against Rory Butcher now. Right, so red flag again. We're not even at halfway yet. And here, coming out of paddock, Will Powell.
Yeah, Will Powell was already on the curb, wasn't he? The slippery curb. And then he locks up. He tries to come off the brake and cadence brake, but there's no way because the engine is locked up and it's all locked up in the transmission and he just can't save it.
And he went in with some force, so that car needs to be moved, and then we'll try again. And as I say, we're almost at the halfway point of Q1, never mind the whole session. We've still got Q2 to go. It's a much interrupted session, this.
Yeah, all the drivers, or most of the drivers, left foot brake. Camish has taken his gloves off, so I think he knows he's okay. So they're left foot braking and just using the no clutch to change down. But of course, once you lock the front wheels on a front wheel drive car, you've locked the engine. The engine is stalled. So even if you come off the brake, it doesn't necessarily give you any more, get the engine going and slow you down anymore. So it's a difficult one. You can't just hit the clutch and keep the engine running because you've got your left foot on the brake.
That's Jake Hill, who is now 3rd in the times. He was another improver on his last completed lap. Let's have a look at that lap tip.
Great to go on board with this, and we'll see what lines he takes and how he approaches it across the start-finish line. He's got a clear track in front of him. Now, does he take a high, wide line through paddock? middle of the road. It just misses the apex, but middle of the road, which straightens out the exit. You hear the car wheel spinning a little bit at the bottom of the hill on that slippery bit. Coming into Druids, he takes a conventional line, gets the car rotated, then drives it off the corner using that rear wheel drive traction. Round to Graham Hill, he doesn't lock up. Uses again the conventional line, but gets good drive off the corner. No use of the curbs at all because they're painted and slippery. Into Surtees, just staying off the curb because it upsets the car. Then braking for clearways. His line is round the outside. Look, he goes all the way around the outside, which means you get on the throttle earlier. Your minimum speed is higher, and you drive off the corner really well. So a really nice, neat lap from Jake Hill.
And that was 55.508 seconds that put him up to third in the times. So, as you can see from the timing tower, it's Sutton, Camish, Hill, Cook, Thompson, Turkington, Rowbottom, Collard, Ingram, Butcher, the ones who will progress. Currently, Will Powell, a very frustrated driver, has to sit out the remainder of the session. He's okay, but missing out on the track time. And the One Motorsport with Starline Racing Honda Civic needing to be retrieved. Busy weekend for that team because they've got a British GT programme operating this weekend at Silverstone. So Danny Buxton, the team manager, in touring car mode today and GT mode tomorrow. So, as soon as the road is clear, we'll have another go at this. Nick Hamilton's car has been brought back. Will Powell's car is being retrieved. The Team Hard engineers will have a look at the Cupra to see what they need to do. Will Powell's car doesn't look too bad from that angle, at least.
So we've got front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive. So we're pretty even spread at the top.
Yeah, it's 4-2, isn't it, within the top six? 4 front-wheel drive, 2 rear-wheel drive. There's the damage now you can see a little bit more clearly on the front of the Honda. So Will Powell surveys the damage, and 26th he was up until the incident that's put him out of the session. The car now goes behind the barrier, so we shouldn't be too far off getting things underway. Ash Sutton still sitting pretty at the top of the times. Presumably, Louise, he's just changing things on his iPod and just relaxing for the moment.
No, actually, he's on his tablet rather than his iPod, watching the session. You enjoying sitting here watching this qualifying session? Because I can't say I blame you with those conditions out there.
I mean, I've not. It's a bit of a first for me. I've only ever done this kind of once, but not to this extreme. But yeah, we managed to put a time on the board, which was obviously good enough to be where we are at the minute. I think everyone's slowly chipping away and getting there now, so we're just going to sit tight. We might have to go out at the end of this session just to make sure we're safe.
This is all about saving tyres, isn't it? So you've got 2 new sets of tyres for the final shootout.
Yeah, it's that factor, and obviously risk versus reward. If we're out circulating and we have an off, a red flag or anything like that, we could potentially lose our lap. So yeah, we're sitting here for as long as we can potentially. That's the aim.
What is the time when you think no, I'm going to have to go out there again? How close, people coming to you?
Well, realistically, we've got to be looking at, obviously we're aiming to be in the top 10 of shootout, so we've got to be looking at around 8th place, that sort of ballpark, and at the minute they're sort of 6-7 tenths away, so I think we're okay, unless suddenly the heavens, unless the sun comes out and the heavens disappear, then I think we're all right.
Well, enjoy the rest of the show on your tablet. I'll leave you to it.
Cheers, always.
So we'll let him get back to it. Ash Sutton remains the fastest then, as the road is now clear and a green flag can't be that far away, Tim.
No, it can't. And interesting, you see the 2 sector times came up on the graphic there while Ash was talking. Well, he had the fastest first sector and the fastest second sector, but crucially, he did it on the same lap. He didn't do it on different laps. He did it on the same lap. So the absolute perfect ideal time is the time that Sutton did, 55.1.
Right, recovery vehicles have done. There's confirmation of that perfect lap time, a 55.112. And that is 0.208 quicker than Dan Camish's best lap. Right, engines are fired up, so the teams are told to expect the green flag imminently. And then we'll see what the next excitement is going to be as the field tries to battle its way into that top 10. Remember, Ronan Pearson is the one that's now just missed out. He is 2 thousandths away from the top 10. He needs to find at least 3 thousandths to get himself in. Green flag waved. Another 2 thousandths gained would only equal Rory Butcher's time, and you give the grid position or the time in the higher place to the driver that set it first, so you need to overhaul it.
Well, I think we did about 3.5 minutes on the last session. I seem to remember saying there's 18 minutes to go, and now there's 15 minutes. So I think that last session was only about 3 or 4 minutes, and 15 minutes is exactly half the session time anyway.
Yes, we have now nudged halfway.
Yeah.
We've got there, everybody. See what has what's in store for us in the remainder of this session. Then, as we've been saying, there are plenty that still need to go for a proper lap time, a better lap time. But the danger is, as Ash Sutton was suggesting, that you make a mistake and off you go. And if you're the cause of the red flag, then you lose your best lap time. So other cars here about to be pushed backward. Andrew Watson, who's not raced on this configuration of Brands Hatch since about 2014, good to rejoin.
Yeah, and as you said, David, even if you're not hoping to get in that top 10, you're still racing for your grid position.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is your grid position from 10th on down to 27th, so you're still fighting for that.
So Ash Sutton stays in the pit lane, as also for the moment as Dan Rowbottom, so two of those Napa Racing Fords stay there. Andrew Watson to the outside of Rory Butcher. That is Tom Ingram with the gold quick fit number plate to signify that he's the champion, coming up towards Druid's 9th fastest. So he's in the top 10, but only just, not really relaxed. Tom needs to find a little bit more time if he can. Certainly won't lack the commitment to try, but it's whether the track surface is conducive to an improvement. We did have that flurry of improvements before that last red flag. Can we do it again?
Yeah, interesting that Dan Rowbottom, who's actually 7th, has stayed in the pits, and Camish, who's 2nd, has gone out.
Ingram has gone absolute best in sector 1. So Tom Ingram there, purple in the first sector, could be on to go to the top of the times depending on what the lap is like in sector 2. Here he comes up towards the timing line. Then the lap to beat is a 55.112 from Ash Sutton. Let's see what he can do as he breaks the beam. And Tom Ingram does a 54.813 to go fastest. Fantastic lap. 2 purples. That's your new perfect lap.
Well, that will panic Sutton for a start, because he'll think, well, if he can do it, who else can do it? Who might be under threat? Turkington goes 3rd.
Yeah, exactly.
So the times are coming now.
And Stephen Jelly goes 8th, so all of a sudden the improvements are coming. We've got Sam Osborne up to 17th, a little bit further back. So Ingram, Sutton, the margin between them is 0.299 of a second. Bobby Thompson has now got dumped out of that top 10. Aaron Taylor-Smith goes 13th.
Pollard up to 6th.
Mikey Doble's up to 17th, Aidan Moffat up to 19th, Josh Cook up to 4th. So as now cars come charging over the line, this is a slightly drier spell, or a less wet spell, which is enabling almost everybody to improve in some form.
Yeah, Cook's up to 4th. So Camish, who was 2nd, is now 5th.
And into the top 10 has now gone George Gamble, so he is 10th. George Gamble is in by 10th, and that's Sam Osborne who's gone off. He's damaged the back, he's damaged the front. That is over at Clearways. He's trying to rejoin, but Sam Osborne, who had just got himself to 20th, has not got going. He's moving, he's got the car out of harm's way. The tyre barrier is damaged, and hopefully, therefore, the session can stay live. So Sam Osborne, with damaged front and rear, heads back to the pit lane. This is Josh Cook heading up towards the timing line, and he had to back out of that because of a yellow flag zone, whereas Ricky Collard is up to 5th fastest. So yes, Josh Cook stays 4th. Right, let's try and piece together what happened to Sam Osborne here, coming up to Clearways, Tim.
Coming up to get a difficult break here. Same thing. He locked the brakes so early that the speed just doesn't get scrubbed off. He got wide, got on the wet grass, no way of stopping the car, and backwards into the tyres. Fortunately, it only resulted in a temporary yellow, but that'll be the end of his session.
It will indeed. Quite a bit of damage to the front and to the back. This is Dan Rowbottom now. He's down to 14th, but he's done an absolute best in the first sector. He's down to 15th. He comes up towards the line, and Dan Rowbottom is into the top 6. The second sector was not that stunning, but the first sector saved him, so he's back into the top 10. Rory Butcher is ahead of him, incidentally, now 5th. So Ingram, Sutton, Bobby Thompson 3rd. Turkington, Butcher, Rowbottom, Cook, Lloyd, Collard, Camish is your top 10. Jake Hill is 11th. He's the best of the rest.
Well, Sutton is keeping his cool. He's still in the pit lane.
He's still 2nd.
There's a few people looking around his car, so maybe he's going to go out. But that just shows how the track can change in an instant.
He's still safe, isn't he? Still 2nd. He was saying drop to 8th. They might get a bit worried, but we've got 10 minutes of Q1 to go. That's Bobby Thompson that hauled himself up to 3rd last time through.
And Camish, who was 2nd, is now on the bubble in 10th. and Hill is 11th, who was right up there as well.
Then there's Chilton, and it changes as Camish goes second, and Turkington goes second. Ingram, Turkington, Camish, Sutton. Sutton is dropping. It's not going to be long, I think, before he is tempted back out. Jake Hill in the first sector doesn't improve on this lap, so he's still 11th.
There's still 10 minutes to go in this session, so the track could considerably dry out.
Ash Sutton is on track. This is Bobby Thompson heading into the pit lane. So Sutton, with Tony Carosa, his engineer, advising him, is back on track. This is Jake Hill's view, coming then out of Druids. Off the road has gone Colin Turkington for the second time in the session at Graham Hill Bend. Colin Turkington gets back on track. He's second fastest, but he's had another scare. This is Jake Hill, sawing away at the wheel.
And the problem is that the conditions aren't the same every lap, so what feels right one lap can feel completely different the next lap. So Turkington's probably braked at the same place, but look, exactly the same. He just hasn't got the car slowed down enough, just because of a fraction more water than the last lap.
Josh Cook was another improver last time to go 7th. Jake Hill to the pit lane. He's got 9 minutes to go. It's Colin Turkington ahead of him, so the two WSR BMWs in. The other one is Stephen Jelly's 14th, and of course Adam Morgan no longer in the session. That's Rory Butcher up at Druids. He is 6th, so he's okay for the moment. Just under 9 minutes of Q1 to go. And Josh Cook has just got up to 6th. We've got Rory Butcher having done a purple sector at the end of the previous lap, but he was slower in the first. What can he do in sector 1 on this lap? The answer is that Rory Butcher can go quicker. So he's done a personal best in sector 1. We could be on for an improvement here for the Toyota. This is new. Whoops, out wide he goes. 2 wheels in the gravel. Another slide. He hangs on to it, but that, I fear, has chucked away that lap just by running a little bit too wide at clearways.
And the next lap, because he'll have no momentum. He's using the hybrid to try and get the car going, but that's probably affected his speed across the line to start the next lap as well.
Yeah, he's dropped about 6/10 in that second sector. I was about to say new engine, of course, for the Toyotas this year, but then Rory drops 2 wheels into the gravel. Lost momentum, and Ricky Collard it is that salvages a lap for Toyota by going up to 8th. Aaron Taylor-Smith 9th. That puts Dan Rowbottom down to 10th. Rowbottom is on the bubble now. Dan Lloyd, who is in the pits, is 11th, ahead of Hill, Chilton, Butel and Jelly to round out the top 15. And Jake Hill, who is, of course, out of that top 10, needs to get back on track, and he is about to see what he can do. He's heading down the pit lane. This could be the man to watch, as now Ash Sutton, absolute best in the first sector, and he goes second at the end of the lap. Ash Sutton, 31 thousandths of a second shy of Tom Ingram.
Well, he came back out under pressure and he's delivered, hasn't he? A good lap. Let's see if Jake Hill can do the same. He's been back in the pits. He's got a new set of Goodyear blue sidewall wet tyres. Let's see what he can do.
Off the road goes Rory Butcher again. That's at Paddock, goes toboggan-like through the gravel, back onto the circuit. So you've already heard him saying how the standing water there can catch you out. Well, he's been off the road at Paddock once. He's briefly had 2 wheels on the gravel at Clearways. Here it is.
Yeah, a different version of the accident. He never even got the car slowed down on the way in. He did remarkably well to just gradually turn the car, because he was off the track at the top of the corner right on the way in, so he got his braking wrong.
60 years, Jake Hill then picking his way through traffic, up through Clearway, through Clark Curve now, heading on to the pit straight. We've just had Bobby Thompson improving to go back up to 4th. Really, really good effort this by Bobby Thompson. We'll see what Jake Hill can do in a moment. There is Thompson rounding Paddock. So Jake Hill onto a flying lap now. That was an outlap that he's just completed. Ingram, the fastest, is in the pit lane. What have we got? 6 minutes on the clock still to go.
Yeah, and it's actually Dan Rowbottom who's now on the bubble in 10th. Still on board with Jake Hill. Comes out of Druids, bit of oversteer, pulls a gear, pulls another gear, then down 1 for Graham Hill. It might just take him a lap or so to bring these tyres in if they were a brand new set. We'll get an indication as he goes across the first split. It's not a personal best, the first split.
But Bobby Thompson did do another personal best. Here he is, up towards the timing line. He's on the hybrid as the light goes blue in the window. And Ash Sutton goes back to the top of the times on a 54.758. Bobby Thompson across the line was slightly slower because he lost time in sector 2. But Ash Sutton goes back to the top then by 55 thousandths ahead of Tom Ingram. Now, that doesn't mean pole position. It just means that he's fastest in this part of qualifying. It's what the top 10 drivers do in Q2 that will count for the grid positions.
So another comparison of sector times. He did it again on the same lap. Fastest first sector, fastest second. Both the ideal and the actual fastest lap of 54.5. So I'm pretty sure he can park up now.
Well, Turkington has gone fastest on a 54.530. So Colin Turkington's at the top of the times. Sutton should be safe in that top 10, you're right, but he's no longer the quickest. And all of this still leaves Dan Rowbottom vulnerable. He is 10th and he's back on track. This is Hill.
Well, Hill should be able to do it, because remember, Turkington had that little off. He came in the pits exactly the same time as Hill. They both went out at the same time, so what can Hill do? This lap, it's an out lap, so I don't know what the...
Third fastest, Jake Hill. Third fastest. He improved in sector 1, he improves in sector 2. Jake Hill goes third. Gets a bit sideways at paddock, but he's in, and that means that Robo is out. Dan Rowbottom misses the cut for the moment by 14 thousandths. Aaron Taylor-Smith is ahead of him, so ATS is now the man on the bubble.
Yeah, good effort by the two BMWs. First and third now, Turkington and Hill. Excellent. Oh, look at that car sliding around as Jake tries to get on the power out of Graham Hill.
Up to 6th goes Dan Lloyd, up to 7th goes Josh Cook. So now that bumps Collard out of the top 10 and Taylor-Smith, and Rowbottom down to 13th. Camish is back up to 4th, and Ronan Pearson is back in, he's 9th, so now Collard gets dropped out of it as well. Good effort by Ronan Pearson. Almost
now
every
Rory Butcher's the one on the bubble in 10th.
Almost every car that crosses the line now has a big effect on the order. Dan Rowbottom is down in sector 1. He's trying hard, but I don't think this is going to be an improvement, but he might be building up for the next lap. He's running out of time here. Dan Camish 4th, I think I told you, had improved. Other improvements in sectors coming from Tom Chilton, who is down in 15th. Josh Cook, another improved lap time, but stays 7th. This is Rowbottom up to the line. Can he do enough in sector 2 to get that car's time better? No is the answer. So he's down to 15th. And remember, it's not only 15th, if that's where he ends up in Q1, because he's then got the 3-place grid drop.
Yeah, well, the track is obviously quickest at the moment. It just depends what tyres you've got on.
Sutton, another absolute best in sector 1. Here he comes, he's on the hybrid, he's up towards the line. So it's Turkington the fastest, Sutton breaks the beam. Sutton is now the fastest, 54.511, 19 thousandths of a second quicker than Turkington. Ash Sutton is back in town, he's back to the top in Q1.
No, that boy's got pace, hasn't he? Whenever the conditions have changed, he's been able to go out and be quickest.
Dan Rowbottom down to 16th, not improving in the first sector, as there is Turkington, who is still second fastest, but it's been a really messy session for Colin. He's had some really good laps, he's had some not so good laps, but still he is there fighting for the top time in Q1, and of course very much part of the battle going into the second part of qualifying, and we are 2 minutes and a bit away from the checkered flag. Right, Tom Chilton is up to 10th, Jack Butel 11th, which is a really good effort. Tom Chilton then 10th on a 55.001.
No one faster on that last lap. So have they had the last roll of the dice? That's Andrew Watson very wide, but gets it back on the track. He's pushing hard, he's down in 20th at the moment.
Well, there are 1 or 2 improvements in sectors coming, like Dexter Patterson, who is down in 14th. Let's have another look at the moment coming out of paddock here. Almost Butcheresque, it was wrong at the top of the hill. Toboggans his way down the hill.
Dexter Patterson on a personal best. Taylor Smith on a personal best.
Yeah, Patterson's lap time wasn't an improvement. No. Taylor Smith hasn't yet crossed the line. We are a couple of laps away from a checkered flag here. So yeah, Dexter Patterson stays 14th. Rory Butcher has gone back out, see what he can do, and he needs to, because he's dropped to 12th.
Taylor Smith did improve, but only to 13th, didn't get in the top 10, but all of the Cupras going very well indeed. There's Jack Butel. He's just outside in 11th, isn't he? But he's got time for another lap.
But he's also on for his best ever qualifying if he's 11th, so that would be a great result for Jack Butel. And we're a minute away from that coming good for him to be 11th, potentially. Over the timing line he goes. Aaron Taylor-Smith's improvement Tim had talked about, and Rory Butcher, I say, is back out on track as well. Other improvements in sectors. George Gamble up to 17th now, and another improvement had come lower down from 1 or 2 in sectors, but then laps abandoned. Right, we have now got Dan Camish improving in sector 1. Jack Butel will know about when he gets to the end of the first sector, which comes at the end of Cooper Straight. But even if he doesn't break into the top 10 and he can stay best of the rest, it'll be his best ever qualifying in the BTCC. Ash Sutton goes ahead of him, so I think Jack was backed out of his lap. Yes, he has. He's slower. Right, the flag is 20 seconds away as Camish goes third, and an absolute best by Jake Hill in sector 1. So Jake Hill, an absolute best first sector. This is Hill's view, 1 corner to go through Clark Curve. Remember, we talk about it in terms of the time. All of this could go out of the window when they get to Q2 because you reset for those top 10. But the checkered flag is at the ready, and Jake Hill comes up towards the timing line now. Is this going to be the fastest of the session? The answer is yes! 54.397 to take the checkered flag. Jake Hill goes fastest of anybody.
And he did it literally as the flag came out. So great timing. The track was getting quicker. He timed it absolutely perfect. Of course, that isn't the grid for the top 10. That is simply the qualifiers through to the top 10. Ronan Pearson, the last one who gets through on 10th.
And Rory Butcher improves to go 5th on his last lap, so he went back out for 1 roll of the dice, and he has done a 54.730. So Rory Butcher is in, and yeah, Ronan Pearson provisionally is the last man within that top 10. Wow. It might have taken a long time to get there, but it was worth it, and that's just the hors d'oeuvre in a way, because the top 10 have got to fight it out now for the first 5 rows of the grid after a short break. So we know 11th and back. In the end, Jack Butel got mugged and fell to 13th because Tom Chilton improved at the end to go 11th. Aaron Taylor-Smith got up to 12th. Great effort, though, by Jack Butel, even so, for 13th on the grid, his best. And Jake Hill is rather the hero of the hour, isn't he? Because that putting him to the top of the times illustrates the pace that he has got, illustrates the pace the BMW has got. And it didn't look as though that was going to be the story at one stage, did it, when it was looking all very much about Ash Sutton. But in the end, Jake Hill it is, who comes out on top in Q1, but that lap time now counts for nothing going into Q2. You reset for the top 10.
Well, I feel like we've had a day's racing in that one qualifying session. But nobody was comfortable. Nobody could sit it out. Every time you thought someone was comfortable, the track improved and they all had to go out again. Yep. And it kept on getting better. Witness the fact that Jake did it right at the end. Yeah, some great driving, and I think we've got a great top 10 shootout coming up.
Well, absolutely so, and it will be between Jake Hill, Ash Sutton, Colin Turkington, Dan Camish, Rory Butcher, Tom Ingram, Bobby Thompson, Josh Cook, Dan Lloyd and Ronan Pearson.
Yeah, and positions from 11th on down set, albeit remember that Rowbottom in 16th has to take a three-place grid penalty.
He does indeed, which is a legacy of a yellow flag infringement in race 3 at Donington. Whew, right, time to catch breath, and in Jake Hill's case, time to have a quick drink. And then we'll get set for Q2. So let's have a look then at the order, provisionally at the end of Q1, where Jake Hill is the fastest from Ash Sutton, the margin 0.114 of a second. Colin Turkington a further 19 thousandths back to be third. Dan Camish 4th ahead of Rory Butcher, and then Tom Ingram 6th. The best of the independent runners, Bobby Thompson 7th ahead of independents Josh Cook and Dan Lloyd, and it's Ronan Pearson into the top 10 for the first time. After that, this is the qualifying order. Tom Chilton 11th ahead of Aaron Taylor-Smith, Jack Butel 13th from Ricky Collard and Dexter Patterson. Dan Rowbottom 16th in the times plus his grid drop ahead of George Gamble, then Stephen Jelly, Jade Edwards 19th and Andrew Watson in 20th. 21st, Aidan Moffat ahead of Mikey Doble, Sam Osborne 23rd after his accident, Adam Morgan 24th after his accident, 25th Nicholas Hamilton after his accident, Will Powell 26th after his off, and Nick Halstead's trip into the gravel puts him 27th.
And hats off to Ronan Pearson. You know, remember, this is only his second ever BTCC meeting, and he's in very difficult circumstances. He's stuck that in the top 10, you know, ahead of race winner Tom Chilton and teammate. He's done a really good job.
There he is. So the Scottish driver with the Saltire on the roof of the car, could argue revelling in Knockhill-like conditions, but we'll see how he fares in Q2. He will be no lower than 10th, one hopes, unless there's a indiscretion lurking in the system for something, which we hope there isn't. So he's got himself into Q2, so a great job done by Ronan Pearson. So there's a rather frustrated Dan Rowbottom, no doubt, who was way down the order, plus the grid drop, and he's got to find some consolation in something somehow, Louise.
Yeah, I don't think he's thanking me for coming to him for this one, but anyway, Dan, if Donington qualifying was a day to remember, I think this is probably a day to forget, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't really know why, which is even worse. Yeah, it just didn't work for us then. I don't know. You know, we were okay initially. I think the track got a little bit better. Maybe we missed a window with a set of tyres, but P16 is not really to write home about. And I think we've got a three-place grid penalty to rub insult to injury as well. So P19, that'll be all right. I'll have to fight through.
Well, it'll be fun to watch. But were you just not getting what you wanted from the car, or was it just not coming together for you behind the wheel?
A bit of both. We've struggled a bit with balance today. You know, obviously I've got Dan and Ash to compare to. There's just little bits everywhere, but I just can't quite extract what I need from the front tyre. Mainly traction, so we need to have a proper look. You know, all three cars are pretty close, but there are subtle differences between driving styles, so maybe it's something I need to adapt to, maybe not. But, you know, we'll work at it. It's fine. It's all right.
Maybe the sun will shine tomorrow.
I think it will. Old Charlie got it wrong today, didn't he? Hey, ordered the wrong weather.
We'll see you out there tomorrow. Thanks, Dan.
So Dan Rowbottom, yes, does have work to do, but of course we will have the hybrid allocation based on championship position going into the first race, and then race results for races 2 and 3. 2-minute board is shown to the teams that are ready then to go out into Q2. Now, on the evidence of what we've seen in Q1, who's going to be fastest then at the end of the next frantic 10 minutes?
Oh, you've got to say it's got to be Sutton or Hill, hasn't it? You know, or Turkington.
Right, keep going.
Or Camish,
yeah,
or Cook.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Any more fences on which you'd like to sit?
I'd say the two favourites are Sutton and Hill, but we'll just have to see. They were the ones that were consistently able to get back up there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Interesting now, look, the sector times were different. They were actually Jake Hill in the first sector and Colin Turkington in the second, making the ideal perfect lap of 54.3.
So Jake Hill gets set to go. Of course, this is about being fast. This is about setting the time. I know that sounds obvious, but Q1, allowing for all the interruptions, was in a sense about trying to be in that top 10. Therefore, how many runs will they have in this, and does that differ in a wet session from a dry?
Well, it does in the sense they haven't got to cross tyres as much. So that means they can be out. If you remember, normally in the dry, the 10-minute session gives quite an advantage to the rear-wheel drive cars because they haven't got to cross tyres. But that won't be such a factor again now. So it all depends on who's got how many sets of brand new mounted up wet tyres that they can put on. But basically, you can have 2 runs in this session.
So the best time that we had in Q1, Jake Hill's 54.397 has got to be the target. Dan Camish then gets set. Remember, he's got very, very limited hybrid use, just 1 second a lap. Does that actually do very much, if anything, for him?
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing, because he can't deploy it till he's doing over 84 miles an hour. And 1 second will really not give you any advantage. So he's effectively running with nothing. That was a good performance.
So out they come, green flag shown, and the top 10 shootout is underway. Tom Ingram will lead them out on track, and there behind is Dan Camish, then Ash Sutton, then Colin Turkington, then Jake Hill, then Rory Butcher, then Josh Cook, and Bobby Thompson and Dan Lloyd. Really impressive effort from Team Hard to get 2 cars in there. The 2
Very
Coopers.
impressive.
Good
nice
job
mix of cars in this top 10, actually.
More front-wheel drive than rear, of course, but then they have the strength in numbers anyway in the entry.
Exactly.
So there, of course, is another local team, isn't it? Team Hard. Dan Lloyd, the Yorkshireman, but he is out on track now. Clock ticks on, and we are almost at the end of the first minute.
Already, yeah. Ronan Pearson may only have 1 set of tyres left, so he's probably just going to wait for the other cars to plough a little furrow through the rain that's settled again on the track and get it ideal for him before he goes out.
Right, so Tom Ingram heads on to a flying lap now as he breaks the beam and goes through, and as he does so, of course, sets the target second sector, but nobody else has completed it yet, so we'll see whether anybody else is going faster when they come up towards the start of their first flying lap. Turkington and Hill, as you can see, using hybrid, then Josh Cook uses the hybrid, and Rory Butcher back into the pit lane. So the Toyota down the pit road. Only one of the 3 Corollas to get into the top 10. Right, Ingram is going to be the benchmark here. He does the target in sector 1 at 33.0, and a lap time around a 54.3 would be comparable to what Jake Hill did to top Q1. So in this top 10 showdown, here they come. This is Tom Ingram up towards the line, and the first flying lap of Q2. He's used all the hybrid on the lap, goes over the timing line of 55.957 as a start-up lap.
Yeah, interesting. I was just looking to see what Butcher's tyre strategy was, and his tyre strategy wasn't to diagonally cross the tyres, which is what you normally do in the dry, but it was to put the left rear on the left front, and the left front on the left rear. So by working the left front on the out lap, he's put that hot tyre on the left rear to give him more stability when he goes through paddock. We saw the Toyota being a bit twitchy there before, so he wants the warmest tyre on that left rear.
Bobby Thompson then goes through paddock, now the fastest on a 54.828. Jake Hill second, and 7 minutes of qualifying now remain. Butcher, of course, yet to do a time, so he's the one that we yet need to drop into the order. At the end of their first flying lap, Thompson, Hill, Cook, Lloyd, Ingram, Camish, Sutton, Turkington the order. And Rowan Pearson has yet to go out, if he's going out at all. He may elect not to and just bank 10th.
Yeah, on board with Camish, who set the fastest first sector of everyone, and notice how he was hugging the inside and taking the inside line at Clearways, and it's done well for him so far, fastest lap so far. So that we can call provisional pole position at the moment.
We can indeed. So he takes that away from Bobby Thompson by 0.199 of a second. Turkington up to 7th when he crossed the stripe last time. This is Jake Hill's view. Jake third as he comes into Druids then.
Yeah, a lot of understeer on the turn in there. He's in second gear, oversteer on the exit, up to third, up to fourth, back down to third for Graham Hill.
This is Ingram, heading then 6th fastest into Clearways, goes way out wide, but very often there's a bit more grip to be found on the outside of the circuit. That's what he's exploiting. And then fires the car up towards the timing line now. On this lap, Ingram did a personal best in the first sector, but not an outright best. But we'll see where he moves up to. 5th fastest as he goes over the timing line. So Camish, Thompson, Hill, Cook, Ingram, the top 5. And Rowan Pearson is now out on track.
Waiting for Hill to cross the line. Everybody setting personal best pretty much in the first sector. And Hill goes fastest on a 54.5. Hill on the provisional pole now.
And Sutton went third, but Turkington has just gone quicker to go third. So Hill, Camish, Turkington, Sutton, Thompson, Cook, Ingram, Lloyd, Butcher, Pearson is the order provisionally. And we're almost at halfway through this top 10 showdown.
So Sutton didn't really deliver what we expected on this first run so far. I wonder if he went back out on old tyres and has got another set for the final push.
We'll find out. Jake Hill has backed out of it. There is Sutton going ahead of him on the road. He is attacking this lap, and Ash Sutton is down in the first sector. That is Colin Turkington, whose first part of the session, of course, had those 2 off-track excursions at Graham Hill Bend. That's Sutton heading through Clearways. Stays out, so coming up towards the timing line. Ready to have another go. This lap, as I say, was a little bit slower in sector 1. He uses the hybrid to give himself a good launch onto the next lap. Personal best in sector 2. Turkington goes fastest, 54.568, 21 thousandths quicker than Jake Hill. Discount Colin Turkington at your peril. There he is, top of the times with 4.5 minutes to go.
Well, Turkington was on pole here last year, but very different conditions. But we've got a BMW 1-2 at the moment. You wouldn't have predicted that at the start of this session.
You didn't? No.
I didn't. I said I wanted to be in a front-wheel drive car. But there's 4 minutes to go yet, David.
This is true. And we've got a lap time from Rowan Pearson on the board finally. Well, that does keep him 10th. Into the pits have come Bobby Thompson, Josh Cook and Dan Lloyd. This is Colin Turkington, not as quick in the first sector on this lap. Ingram now pits also. Turkington gets ready for the next lap, staying out there, ready to respond if he needs to. But for the moment, with lots of people pitting, improvements not to be found, but they will come. Of course, with it being a short, sharp, sub-60-second lap, even with 3 3/4 minutes to go, might not sound a lot, but you can get quite a few laps in. There is Sutton, who on the last lap did an absolute best in the last sector, improved his lap time and is 4th still, but he's still got the pace.
He certainly has, at least on half the circuit. It's that first half of the lap he needs to improve. We'll see if he does it on this lap. Uses the curbs, has a bit of a slide. Did that slow him up off the corner? He's coming up to the sector beacon now, and it's not a personal best.
So he needs to really dig deep in sector 2 to save the lap. 3 minutes away we are from the checkered flag. As through he turns, Dan Camish staying in the pit lane, but now on his way back out and will rejoin the road not far ahead of this man, Ash Sutton, who's on the hybrid power then now heading to the line. So he is 4th at the start of the lap, down in sector 1, down in sector 2, no improvement in the lap time then. So after all the effort, it comes to naught for a wheel-waving Ash Sutton turning into Paddock Hill Bend. Right, the road's getting busier again, so 2 3/4 minutes to go, and everybody's back out, ready for another push.
And remember, by virtue of not being in that top 7 positions, Sutton has maximum hybrid availability, which is 15 seconds a lap. So he won't be very happy at being behind Camish at the moment.
Indeed not. Ronan Pearson is up to 9th, by the way. Hat tip to him. He's gone ahead of Dan Lloyd. So Dan, of course, who raced and won in a Hyundai last year, switching to Team Hard and the Coopers this year. He's 10th. Ronan Pearson, touring car newcomer, is 9th. And that's his teammate Tom Ingram going through. Ting is 8th, but he's just done a personal best in the 2nd sector to complete an outlap. So this is one to watch from Ingram. Sutton goes through, and on that lap he was quicker in sector 1, but not in sector 2.
He just can't put that lap together, can he?
So up to Druids goes Ash Sutton, and Bobby Thompson's an improver in sector 1. We're waiting for Ingram to go through the timing beam at the end of the first sector. This is Dan Camish's view. He is on a flying lap now as well. There's that single wiper. This clears his side of the screen. And absolute best for Dan Camish in the first sector. So Camish quicker than anybody in the first part of the lap. This is his view as he bounces down through the gears, turns through clearways, up towards Clark Curve. Ahead of him on the road is Tom Ingram, who should be an improver. Dan Lloyd is back up to 9th ahead of Ronan Pearson. Right, we'll worry about Ingram first, although he's down in sector 1. Then there's Dan Camish to count across the line. Ingram stays 8th. Camish goes through, goes 2nd. And that was a 54.586, so he's 18 thousandths of a second shy of Colin Turkington, and there's a minute to go.
So he's split the 2 BMWs, and remember, this is a man with literally 1 second of hybrid use on the lap. So Dan Camish is driving really well, and I'm watching out the window. I know I should watch the pictures you're seeing, but they're very different lines. They're all taking round clearways, searching out for the grid.
Right, Colin Turkington stays top. Is he going to be able to hang on in there then for a 28th career pole position? Well, right now the answer is yes. Other improvers, Ash Sutton, sector 1 personal best, not an outright best, but a personal best. So Sutton could move himself up the grid a little as you look at Camish. Now you look at Sutton heading up towards the line. He stays out, sprayed, kicked from the back of the car. Ingram's gone up to 7th then, and here comes Sutton to the timing line, 4th at the start of the lap and 4th at the end of the lap as well. That lap was not a quicker one. Again, it was sector 2 that went against him this time.
Yeah, although earlier he set a purple sector 2. I know that's subsequently been beaten, but he can do it in sector 2. But he seems unsure of which line is quickest into clearways, the wide outside line or the tight inside line.
Right, checkered flag is out. Jake Hill has just gone up to 2nd. 54.574. That means he's missed out by 6 thousandths of a second from Colin Turkington. You've got your BMW 1-2 again now. Camish 3rd ahead of Sutton, so the 2 Napa Fords 3rd and 4th. Rory Butcher in the pit lane, 5th for Toyota Gazoo Racing, and then 6th for Team Hard. Bobby Thompson, great effort that, ahead of Tom Ingram. Josh Cook 8th. 9th, Dan Lloyd. 10th, Ronan Pearson. Dan Camish has not given up yet, though. Absolute best in the first sector. Goes across the line and goes quickest of all on a 54.297 by 2/10ths quicker than Colin Turkington. Absolute best and a personal best, and the championship leader gets another point for pole position. That was some lap.
Wow. That was a lap. This man is making a hell of a statement as Josh Cook recovers from a spin at clearways just on the last lap. But wow, what a statement Camish is making so far this year. What a different start to last year. But to come out and do a lap, 2/10ths, nearly 3/10ths quick. Look, he's so happy. What a lovely reaction. I'm so glad we get to see that. Wow, that was a special lap.
Right at the very last as well, up to the checkered flag. Dan Camish goes not only to the top of the times, but he gets that extra point within the championship. It's a 5th career pole position for him, but by 0.271 of a second. That's quite a margin, bearing in mind that the gap second to third is 6 thousandths of a second. So 2/10 might not sound a lot, but put it in the context of the margin behind him, and it is quite a big gap. Well done, Dan Camish. Ash Sutton did do the absolute best in the second sector, so the perfect lap would have been a 54.179. But that's irrelevant. Dan Camish is the man of the moment. He is fastest then at the end of our top 10 showdown. A tremendous lap for the Napa Racing UK Ford Focus driver. He almost can't believe it.
No, I don't think he didn't expect to be there, did he? With only 1 second of hybrid use in qualifying against the others. But the wet has helped him. His skill and his touch and his feel have been enough to get in there. But it'll be very different if it's dry tomorrow in the racing.
So, at the end of the top 10 showdown, Dan Camish, the fastest from Colin Turkington, and Jake Hill, third. Ash Sutton, fourth, ahead of Rory Butcher. Bobby Thompson, a really good sixth, ahead of Tom Ingram and Josh Cook. Dan Lloyd, ninth, and Ronan Pearson's first appearance in a top 10 showdown then puts him 10th fastest, the outside of the fifth row of the grid. All of those times, of course, set in the showdown. That's the front of the grid. The rest of the grid based on what drivers did in Q1, and therefore Tom Chilton 11th in the times, ahead of Aaron Taylor-Smith, Jack Butel and Ricky Collard. Dexter Patterson 15th, ahead of Dan Rowbottom, but bear in mind Rowbottom had that three-place grid drop to add in. And right at the very back, the likes of Osborne and Morgan and Hamilton and Powell and Halstead, who are all in the wars, all suffering dramas, and are all going to have to try and do some fighting when we get to race 1 tomorrow. Now, right at the end of qualifying, Josh Cook was in the wars up at Clearways, a bit like Sam Osborne's drama, and found himself in the tyres. Less damaging, but a similar off. Yeah,
he obviously got the car slowed down a bit earlier. Going sideways, I think, actually scrubbed off a bit more speed, so it was ended up with a fairly light kiss against the tyre barrier.
So, well done to Dan Camish then. As I say, career pole 5. The car now goes through those technical checks, and we will hear from him, no doubt, shortly. Well, second in the times, Colin Turkington. At least he's on the front of the grid, Louise.
We were maybe on for a BMW front row there. Got pipped at the end, but nonetheless, as David's just said, it's still a front row start.
Yeah, it's a great result for Team BMW, Louise. It's going into those conditions. Honestly, you could either be on pole or you could be 15th, and it's so difficult to be in the right place with the car, because you know the level of, let's say, wetness is changing so much, you know. So and then you start to get some standing water on the track, and then the car becomes undrivable. But then within a few laps, it's cleaned up again. So I think it's just about trying to keep it on the island, which I didn't do every lap. But yeah, I'm pushing hard. But you know, I was pleased with you know, with my performance in both sessions there. You know, we were wringing the neck, taking a few risks, but that's what it's all about.
How squeaky were those moments for you? Because I think everybody was having them.
Yeah, I think it's just about having those moments in the right place. You know, you don't want to be having a big moment on the way into paddock. So yeah, so you know, all credit to, you know, John and the team of engineers. You know, I think we've got the BMWs in the sweet spot today for these conditions, but of course all change tomorrow. So start again.
Well done, great performance. And talking of having a few off-track excursions, Jake, as I was just saying to Colin, everybody was. You certainly had a few of your own, didn't you?
I don't think I actually went off, Lou, to be fair.
No, I do apologise.
Yeah, you're telling me I've gone off? No, she's clean as a whistle. Yeah, we're all right. No, we didn't go off. It was sketchy though. Wow, you know, I mean, that was really, really difficult. You know, it's just in the first quali there were so many puddles, and trying to get the sweet spot through the puddle so the car was straight was really crucial. And obviously we ended Q1 P1, which was fantastic, and then to finish third there, yeah, I'm really pleased. You know, it's really close between me and Colin, and Dan obviously just pipped us there, so fair play to him. It's I'm really happy with that quali.
It was, again, as Colin was just saying to me, it was all about getting it right at the right time, wasn't it? Because, you know, at times you were way out of the top 10, certainly in the first qualifying session. So did you feel like the track came towards you, came towards the car in Q2?
It actually fell away for me, so it came to me massively at the end of Q1, which is why we managed to go so much faster. And then at the start of Q2, it was very much the same. But at the end of Q2, it was very difficult. So, but anyway, look, I'm really pleased. P3, top job.
Well done, well done. And I can see our pole sitter just getting congratulations from the team. Dan, what a lap that was.
It was somewhat, wasn't it? Even I was a little bit shocked when I saw it come across the line. What a difficult session for everyone. I mean,
I don't know how long we've been in the cars. It feels like a lifetime. You know, the red flags and watching the time tick away, and you just constantly, you come in and you ask your engineer, you know, are we safe? Are we not? You know, if this was F1, who you know, what's the cut-off point? What do we think? And you never feel safe. You know, the track changes so much. So we kept working and we kept thinking about the track coming to us and the car coming to us, and we made the right call. I mean, we've literally aborted the lap on, you know, to come down the pit lane to put a fresh set of fronts on. It made the right call, you know, a bit of gut and a bit of luck. And the last lap, the car just like a switch just went, here's the grip that you've been asking for. So yeah, credit to the boys, it's been amazing. I'm a little bit taken aback by that one. You know, you always believe in yourself, but yeah, what a start to the season. No matter, you know, tomorrow's another day. We're going to have a really good fight on our hands with all these guys. But with the car I've got under me, yeah, I feel like anything's possible.
You say credit to the boys, but credit to you as well, because you did that with literally a 1 second, to be fair, of hybrid. How much of a difference did that make, or was it somewhat negated by the conditions?
No, I mean, you know, I had no hybrid really, 1 second or 2 seconds if you kind of use it on to start the lap, and obviously use it to end the lap. It feels like 2, but it's nothing really. It was negated today, wasn't it? Which was always going to help even things out for me. But yeah, just, you know, I've worked hard over the winter. You know, I think I said before last week that, you know, last year the gap that I had sometimes to Ash, you know, yes, part of it was the car and part of it was I needed to go away and come back stronger, and I think I've done that. And you know, I've got to be proud of myself for that lap, because you know, when all said and done, it was on the edge of adhesion the whole way around. So I'll take this one and sleep well tonight, and we'll come back tomorrow.
Yeah, well done you. Look forward to see what you can do with it tomorrow. Right, I'm now going to run down to Team Hard, because I think there might be a few happy people down there. So I'll hand back to you for the moment, and be back with you in a second.
Louise, thanks. There's one happy Team Hard driver behind you, which is Bobby Thompson, who's still with his car. And another one potentially is Jack Butel, I think, after a really good effort in qualifying. But Bobby Thompson, pre-session, was optimistic. And come the end of the top 10 showdown, is no doubt a very happy man indeed. So we'll hear from Bobby Thompson in a moment. As he strides down the pit lane, let's have a look, Tim, at that lap from Dan Camish. It was a mighty effort. This is what it was like on board.
Yeah, new set of front tyres on to give him maximum grip. Let's see where he places the car to find the grip on the road. Across the start-finish line, up high into the middle of the road initially. And he goes in, look, he goes in late apex, gets the car straight to use the front traction, get that steering wheel unlocked as quick as possible, in early, and again, watch him try and wind the lock off. He rotates the car there, takes the lock off, uses the traction off the tyres, down the hill, up to fourth very briefly before down to third. Across the curve there, that's more of a dry line. Good speed off the corner, now into Surtees, carrying the speed again, really using the curves, just holding it on the track there on the exit, and look how tight he goes in there. It shortens the distance massively, but usually makes it slightly slower off the corner. But knowing he's got new front tyres on, he's got the traction, and I think that's where the lap was won and lost, that entry and exit through clearways. Brilliant lap.
So that was Dan Camish up to the checker flag, onto pole position, and then the news came through, and it was a delighted Dan who's been congratulated there by Dick Bennett. Jake Hill wanders over to say well done as well, and as we've been saying, that was some effort with effectively no hybrid to speak of, just that 1 second that's neither here nor there over the course of the lap. Right, Bobby Thompson has got much to celebrate as well. Let's hear from him with Louise.
He has indeed. Just before I talk to Bobby, though, John, I just want to get you to swing round to see how many people have come down here to celebrate this. This garage is absolutely heaving with some very happy people. I mean, it's been a fantastic result all round for the team. We spoke earlier on. You said, "Oh, I want to get in the top 10." You've done just that.
Yeah, exactly. Our first goal was just getting in that top 10, and then the rest is a dogfight, isn't it? You know, I just want to say, well done to everyone in the Team Hard family for making this weekend happen. We've had there's Dan giving me a bit of love. Yeah, it's huge just to get in the top 10, especially 2 cars as well. It's absolutely amazing.
What can you do from there, do you think? How much damage in the nice way can you do from there?
I think we've got more than 6th in us. I really do. I think 6th is slower than we could actually go in that session. Yeah, I think we've got podium on our hands this weekend. If all goes well, you know, depending on conditions tomorrow.
You obviously had your maiden podium here this time last year. That was kind of partly down to the conditions as well, wasn't it? So how does it feel to be back here 12 months later and actually saying we're aiming for a podium, but right up there with, you know, at the front of the pack?
Feels surreal, doesn't it? But it's got to happen at some point. I mean, we're pushing so hard, and so myself, the team, the boys. So you know, it's all coming together. It's going to happen, and it feels like this weekend. We'll see.
Wish you the very best of luck, and let's come on, Jack, come in and join us, because another happy man. P13 it ended up being, I think, didn't it? But that's a lucky P13, because that is your best ever qualifying result, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We were 11th, literally, up until the checkered flag, and yeah, I think they literally just got us on the line. But yeah, best we've ever finished is 19th, so to come out with a 13th was mega.
We've been talking to Bobby earlier in the weekend about the feeling that he's got from the car. He just feels really at one with it. Is that the same situation with you? Are you feeling that that the car's talking to you better now?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like whatever I want from the car, the team can give it to me, and all of us are working so hard, all 6 of us, to try and get the best out of the car. And I think obviously today, and obviously with Nick getting P6 last week, I think we're on the up, which is good. And yeah, come out with a 13th. I'm so happy.
Well, Bobby's talking podiums tomorrow. What's your aim starting from P13?
I mean, we've got our aim for P10. That's I think it's a good aim. We've shown in the past we've got really good race pace. So yeah, I think 10th would be an absolute dream.
Well, we will keep our fingers firmly crossed for you, and enjoy this moment with everyone here. Camera's still going down here in the Team Hard garage. Well done.
Cheers, thank you.
Back to you guys.
Louise, thanks very much. Well done, Jack Butel. Well done, Bobby Thompson. And, of course, well done to Dan Camish. And there was a lot for the family to celebrate when Jack got out of the car, as we've been hearing. His best qualifying. And he threw everything at that lap. And, yes, OK, he lost a couple of places. But even so, he's right in the scrum, ready to get his elbows out for tomorrow's first race. The Brands Hatch Indy circuit always delivers plenty of action. That's the man that's going to start on pole position for race 1, and in so doing, it's another point in the championship. The championship leader, Dan Camish, then, will, as he says, sleep well tonight and look forward to 3 fierce races on the Brands Hatch Indy circuit tomorrow in the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. As ever, the full supporting programme as well tomorrow, which is joined this weekend by the Legends Championship, so cracking racing from those cars can be anticipated, along with action from F4, from Mini and from Carrera Cup GB. Rounds 4, 5 and 6 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship live from Brands Hatch tomorrow on ITV4 from 10:45 AM. For now, though, from a very damp Brands Hatch, from Louise Goodman, Tim Harvey and David Addison, it's goodbye.